everyone. We having a great Ignite? Yes? Woo! Any fine arts majors out there? All right. I know I have a few in here in the front row, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Well, my name is Liz Sundett, and I happen to be a music major. Yes. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. Most jobs have some type of basic requirements and around a specific degree. Now, in terms of technology jobs, we typically see these minimum requirements as a computer science degree. Okay? But in terms of those music majors, they sometimes are a little bit alienated from seeing these types of degrees. And I know I was when I first started getting into technology. For women, they feel like they have to meet 100% of these requirements before they will apply for a job. For men, it's about 60%. But how would you like to see something like this and feel like maybe I don't meet everything because I don't have a computer science degree? Now, this was actually a job description for a job that I had working in an IT department as a senior business analyst. And my feedback to the company was, you're looking for an MBA in project management, and yet this role is for a junior level business analyst. So that has been kind of my complication all along. Well, it hasn't always been that way. A colleague of mine in Rochester, Minnesota, at the college that I worked for, went to apply for a job at IBM. The year was 1973, and she saw an advertisement in the local newspaper saying how they were wanting to hire music majors and English majors because IBM at that time had figured out that those types of degree people could pass their tests. These tests were basic tests, mostly around, do you understand progressions? Well, she happened to be the first computer science major to ever be hired at IBM. But it wasn't always that way, and a lot of stuff has changed since that time. For instance, we now have computer science degrees in almost every single major university out there. And I know when I got into my IT career, they started asking me things like, well, you seem to understand these systems, the computer systems, and yet you have a music degree. I don't get the connection there. So I would simply reply, I see patterns. And that's all I knew at the time. So I started doing some research as to why my view of the world was so different from, say, others that maybe didn't have the music degree or didn't have the fine arts degree like I did, but could do technology and understand it very, very simply. There had to be some scientific research that was out there, in my opinion. And let me tell you, there's not a whole lot, but what there is out there is really, really great stuff. And for me, it started putting the pieces of the puzzles together. So I started researching, and what I found was there's a book by Douglas Hofstadter called Gödel, Escher, Bach. In it, he compares and contrasts the works of a famous mathematician, a famous artist, and a famous musician. And he talks about all of these people that lived in very, very different time periods, but had something very, very close in common, and that being the mathematics of the Fibonacci sequence and the Pythagorean theorem. And he found those types of mathematics in every single one of their works. So let's take a closer look at the Fibonacci sequence. We've all seen this sequence before. F to the 0 equals 0, F to the 1 equals 1. Maybe it looks a little like binary code? Yes? But we've all seen the sequence in action. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 1 plus 2 equals 3. 2 plus 3 equals 5. 3 plus 5 equals 8. And so on and so forth. And when we apply that Fibonacci sequence to computer programming, we get things like the search technique, heap data structures, and Fibonacci cubes. However, when we apply this to art, we get something called the golden spiral. And this is also applicable in architecture as well. You can see these elements. And you can see it also in nature, such as the shell. But when we apply it to music, we get a little bit of a different perspective. Let's take a look at just one scale in music, one octave, if you will. And when we start looking at these things, a pattern will emerge. We've got 8 white keys. We've got 5 black keys. We've got 13 keys all together. And when we focus in on a couple of other elements in the Fibonacci sequence, we can see that we've got 1, 3, 5, 8, and 13 highlighted. And every single musician will be able to recognize this as an arpeggio. It's very, very common. Even the constructs of a violin can be measured to the exact precise dimensions of a Fibonacci sequence. And if you need any more proof, those little Fs that are on the side of a violin that are supposed to help with the acoustics, well, that's actually a nod to Fibonacci himself. But let me tell you, musicians don't walk around saying, hey, look at this awesome Fibonacci sequence that I just perfected. It's going to sound so great on stage tonight. No, they have so much more to think about. It's keeping in time, watching the music, making sure I'm hitting the right notes, the placement of my fingers on the instrument, watching the conductor, listening to others, and finally, remembering to breathe. Because yes, sometimes we forget to do that as well. However, musicians understand mathematics in a little bit of a different way. For them, it is not processing based, as in 1 plus 1 equals a sum. It is application based, and that's how they understand it. And every musician knows that they will be able to subdivide all of the different scales based on pi. Okay? But it doesn't only apply to music. They can be found in other fine arts majors as well. This is an early example of poetry or literature. We also find it in art, and we can also see it in architecture. Again, it's a little bit different part of the brain that applies these mathematics and uses them to make sense of the world. And that is where the connection is for these types of people to computer technology. It's in those applied mathematics to something that is a little bit conceptual. We can apply models to it, and we can understand the world in a little different way. Yes, in our minds, we see patterns everywhere. But it's not just the mathematics. And believe me, I'd love to take a whole session and talk about lots and lots of mathematics with you, but it gets really, really complex. And what I figured out is that fine arts majors have a great set of soft skills that can be a huge asset to any team that works in technology. An article in the Balance of Careers in January of 2018 listed these as the top soft skills. And what I found in these is that every musician possesses these types of skills. and can be found in many, many fine arts majors as well. So let's take a closer look at some of those soft skills. In terms of communications, most instrumental musicians are introverts. They actually fall under one of 4 types of Myers-Briggs, including INTPs, which happens to be my dominant Myers-Briggs personality type. When it comes to musicians, there's really 2 types. Those that are introverts, and then those who are masquerading around on this earth as extreme extroverts, but they're really introverts. Other fine arts majors like theater, you might find a little bit more extroversion people. But bottom line, these people are not shy. They have the ability to communicate. Incidentally, other INTPs include Abraham Lincoln, Albert Einstein, who actually studied the violin since a very young age, and Microsoft's founder himself, Bill Gates. Now, is there any doubt that fine arts majors aren't creative? I mean, doesn't the name fine arts kind of imply there's a sense of creativity in and of itself? These are the types of people that can take any type of subject and make it interesting because they look at it from a different perspective and will put a sense of creativity around that. People who have ever been involved in any kind of performance spend hours and hours perfecting that one note, that one piece, that one movement, that one phrase. When I marched drum and bugle corps in the early 1990s, I spent 3 months, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week on a 10.5-minute program, and we would perform it up to 5 times per week. It's that kind of dedication that takes a high amount of determination for perfection. Fine arts majors also show a lot of flexibility, and this could be kind of a misconception in the business world that they maybe don't show a whole lot of flexibility, but believe me, their vision hasn't changed in terms of what they want to achieve. It's just maybe how we get there. So they can be very, very flexible if it is along the same goal. Simon Young published an article that I deeply, deeply connected with, and he called it 5 Powerful Lessons Learned from Musicians. And in it, he describes that musicians need a mass of people to be able to share their visions with, to be able to come together as a community and be able to achieve a goal. And it's that vision that they instill in others to empower others. And that's a common leadership trait that fine arts majors have. It's this building the community around them and making sure they have allies that they can go to get the work done. And that's a great leadership trait for any team. In terms of performing and mentoring, most musicians and fine arts majors have probably been studying their craft since they were very, very young. Early ages. I know I started studying the piano at age 5, and I was performing in front of groups of people by age 7. So it's these types of people that you want to look for mentors. Why is that? It's because they want to teach others to perform with them. They're all about learning and growing and knowing what they've been through. But there's another side as well, and that's empathy, is the fact that they've been through this in terms of teaching others and mentoring others. They've probably been through the exact same thing that those people are going through themselves, so they can make great mentors. In terms of getting up on a stage, most people fear this. And that's the number one thing that companies look for is, can a person communicate to every level of an organization. Get up in front of the CEO or get up in front of a group of end users and be able to give a talk, teach someone, all of those types of things. Fine arts majors are not scared of this. Why? Because they've been doing it for so long. They have a natural ability to be on the stage and be in front of groups of people, public speaking. They don't fear these types of things. And that can be a huge asset for any company. Because artists, musicians, and thespians are accustomed to doing things together, they typically make great team players, and they are involved in teamwork quite often. They can actually play just about any role and take on a number of tasks within that team to be able to achieve success for that group of people. And this makes them valuable assets, not only in the company, but to any project that you might be working on. So when I see job descriptions such as this, I'm not afraid of them. I look at them as a challenge, an opportunity to provide education, to provide empowerment to other people. And I know I have the capabilities of any of these jobs without qualifying for necessarily that little sentence within the description. I look at these job descriptions and I want to go after it. And I think I'm a qualified individual to any workforce, as well as any fine arts major that's out there. So if you start alienating people by putting those types of job descriptions within your company, please know that you might miss out on interviewing that artist, that thespian, that author, or that musician. But if you do happen to get one that comes across and you get to interview them and you find out that they have the same kind of qualifications, they're going to make a great fit for your company. So go ahead, hire that fine arts major so you won't be disappointed. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, in the back. How do you attract? How do you attract fine arts majors? I'm sorry, I'm going to come closer to you so I can hear you.
I just went through a round of hiring. It's basically an entry-level position. We did not put anything about college degree requirements in it, and we didn't get any.
You didn't get any? Okay.
Everybody had a computer science.
Okay. So the question is, how do you attract those fine arts majors? He has a situation where he just went through a round of hiring and found that there wasn't any kind of people that were fine arts majors that applied, and yet they didn't put any kind of job description to narrow down just computer technology. Sometimes it's the wording in terms of what are the requirements. So make the requirements a little bit more of the creative, the soft skill types of things that I talked about, and that might help attract some of those different types of fine arts or creatives. But I think a lot of times people are also scared to write down on their resumes that they actually have maybe a background in music. Maybe they didn't major in it, but they have a background. They've studied an instrument, that type of thing. So I always like to ask or like to make sure that that applicant shares maybe what their interests are, what they have, in terms of maybe some fine arts types of skills as well. Any other questions? All right, I'll be around. Thank you very much. Have a great Ignite.